they're doing it already. They just don't get credit for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely, that's true. Let me where I wanted to go from here is to address the current environment. And we have probably 5 or 6 members who are like constantly, texting Master Smith or myself, stressed out about what their governor is doing, what their mayor is doing. Oh my God, they have an outbreak. They don't know when they're opening yet. They're opening, but they can only. If you fixate on any of that stuff, you're missing the point, right? Matt Smith, I was just talking, as I mentioned, Apollo Ladra. And it was funny because the reason he called me is he's doing a session at the Super Show, and they had called it, "It's time to thrive, not just survive." And then it came to his attention that we're doing a bunch of stuff that is the time to thrive, not just survive. And he was concerned about asking permission and changing it if I wanted him to, whatever. But the conversation was interesting because he said their numbers have skyrocketed in the last 90 days. And with all of their participating schools who have launched well on Zoom, they're actually have better enrollment numbers. He did, he said 31 enrollments last month for 100% virtual classes. And so we were talking about that, and I was saying, well, yeah, I mean, I am not only not stressed out about when we can be physically opened, but I'm so excited about all the opportunities. I kind of hate for the idea of things to return to normal. As the metaphor we've been using is a dimmer switch that gradually opens back up and can gradually tone back down and may gradually open back up, right? So, what we know is they may go from, you can have 25% capacity, 50% capacity, go back to sort of normal. They may jump it back to 50%, jump it back to 25%. They may jump it back where you can't be open physically. From all that we know now on the marketing environment, the ability to do enrollments on virtual through Zoom, the ability to run full class schedules, why would any of us be emotionally stressed about all that stuff?
We have a better opportunity now than we had 2 months ago or 3 months ago, because now we have at least an opportunity to do some live. And if not, if somebody doesn't want to come in live, at least we can still do the online stuff with them. And if you guys that have your space is too small and you're not getting enough people in your classes because of distancing and not enough space in there to get enough people, don't forget that outdoor thing. Some are going to the park, some can do it in front or beside their school. There's a grassy area or across the street where you have the opportunity to do some of that training because you can get more people in it.
Yeah, but Master Smith, but that goes off in a different direction than what my concern is. My concern is your mental state. If you're letting this whole situation stress you out, and you're worried about what the governor is saying, you're worried about what the mayor is saying, you're worrying about, there's an outbreak, in Texas, or there's an outbreak in Arizona. If you're stressed out about that, you're spending too much time watching the news, you're spending too much time listening to social media, and you're not focusing on the opportunity with your school, right? We know a portion of your student body aren't going to come out of hibernation. A portion of your student body, if you said, we're going to have, full grappling classes, no mask, and half of the people are already infected, and so now you'll be in the other half, they're still going to be there because they believe it's a hoax and they just want to be there, right? Don't get caught up in all the political crap. Don't get caught up in worrying about that from a business perspective. What you want to be thinking of it, the dimmer switch opened a little bit. We can do more face-to-face and physically. It dimmed down a little bit. We can do a little less. Master Smith is right. You can be doing all the classes online. You can be doing classes in the park. If you're allowed to have a full house in the school, you can have a full house. If not, you can have a, by reservation or whatever with, you're in your particular area. But so what? We want to have all mechanisms going on marketing. We want to be enrolling people online. We want to be enrolling people in face-to-face if you can. We want to be enrolling them at the park, on the park bench if you can. We want to have all those different things going on. And our emotional state has to be, well, I don't care less, right? Is great to have class at the school. It's great to have class online. It's great to have class at the park. But the important thing is student retention, keeping the enrollment flow going, keeping the renewal flow going. Among our members, we've had 4 or 5 conversations just in the last week who are going, oh my goodness, I'm down, 45 students out of 300. Well, okay. So you've lost about 5% a month. Just out of curiosity, what was your dropout rate before? Oh, 4 or 5% a month. Well, okay. So you're down 45 because you stopped doing enrollments. In what other 90-day period can you stay even and not do new enrollments? Everybody knows you have to constantly keep everybody you've got and enroll new people. And if you just try to keep everybody you've gotten and don't enroll people, you're going to have some loss. I'd rather it be 1 or 2%, but if it's 5% a month, whatever the number is, you've got to know whatever number you're losing, that's the number you've got to replace just to stay even, right? So on an emotional state, I've seen we're at a breaking point, I think, where a lot of people are spending too much time on social media. They should turn off Facebook. They should turn off Twitter. They should turn off the news. They should get out of everybody else's ridiculous emotional reaction. And they should just take a deep breath and say, what do we need to be doing today to make sure our student retention is wonderful? How do we make sure we enroll more people this month than we lose? And how do we keep the renewal flow going, right? Amanda, you and Jan and several of us had a conversation last week, and it's like, oh my goodness, our gross is down. Well, okay. If you just stop asking for big down payments and stop doing cash deals, do you think your gross might decline? Well, how much did you do on big down payments and paid in fulls, last June? Okay, well, we got to do at least that much this June, right? So, your business is only the function of keeping students, renewing enough to replace that, enrolling enough to replace, or enrolling enough to move towards the goal that you have. And then it's renewing them within the first 2 to 4 months, right? Only a function of 2 things: how much they're paying monthly and how many of them you have, and how much they're paying initially and how much of them are accelerating their payment. Paying for a year up front, paying for 5 years up front, right? That's it. It's a simple formula. You can ask for cash on Zoom just as easily as you ask for cash face-to-face. People can give you cash on Zoom just as easily as face-to-face. An enrollment done virtually is just as valuable as an enrollment done face-to-face. You can ask for just as big a down payment virtually as you do face-to-face, right? I'm just worried about the emotional state that a lot of us seem to be getting in, right? I personally, when I get messages like, here's what the dumbass mayor of Michigan just did. I don't care what the mayor of Michigan just did. What does that have to do with enrollments, renewals, retention, cash flow? Well, there's a spike in Texas. I don't care. I don't want people to die, but as far as our business, there's so much opportunity out there that we don't have to worry about that. We're we reacted on the way in by gradually dialing down in-person classes, gradually dialing up the remote classes. I think that the remote classes are here for many of us to stay permanently. At the very least, I think they're here to stay till Christmas or till this time next year. But you've got to not let yourself or your staff go through this emotional roller coaster. Turn off social media, It doesn't matter what your friends' opinions are, right? Stop watching the news 24/7. The only thing that affects you is how many people you get physically in the facility, right? And then it's how are we going to balance it all out in order to get enough enrollments and enough renewals and keep our retention tight enough that everything's in good shape. Does that make sense? The other thing not to do, and I would recommend go read a bunch of the cognitive behavioral therapy material, it's really good. But the other thing not to do is stop mind reading. Stop assuming you know what your students are thinking, right? You don't know what your students are thinking. And they're not one homogeneous group. I think a realistic way to look at it is there's a spectrum. Some that no matter what are going to show up if you tell them they can show up, and they're going to do grappling, they're going to do whatever face to face. You know, what percentage that is, I don't know. I'm going to guess around 20%. There's some that are going to be terrified and hibernated until they've been vaccinated, and right? That's okay too. Most are somewhere in between. There's this horrible political conversation going on right now, which I don't understand. I've been trying to understand it, reading all of the literature on why people politically think differently and so forth. I still don't understand it. But the political divide is Democrats are tending towards the heck with small businesses. We're going to just stay shut until this thing is done and not a person gets sick. And Republicans are tending towards mask or bullshit. You know, let's go gather in big groups and let's go chant, and, you know, they let them do protests so we can do everything we want. Stay away from all that stuff, right? What you want is middle ground, rational people in the middle. Is when they come in, they feel safe. They believe that you're behaving physically at the facility in a safe, reasonable way, right? The mask, no mask thing. Everybody keeps fighting on the mask deal. My argument is make everybody wear a mask. Number one, when they come in the door, give them a student branded mask, have them disinfect their hands, have them go home if they're running a temperature. If they self-report, in addition to that, they've been sick, tell them to go do class on Zoom. So don't let sick people into the school. Require them to wear a mask, and then keep them 6 foot apart from each other. So I wouldn't be, we're going to wear a little temporary mask and we're now grappling with each other. I think that's stupid. As an example, right? Keep them 6 feet apart, keep them wearing a mask, hand sanitize on the way in. You know, the CDC has a bunch of really cool graphics. Put the graphics up, you know, wash your hands. Here's the hand sanitizer. Have 22 hand sanitizing stations around or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but, you know, do all the things to be safe, and then behave with your business, not the way the most extreme politicians are telling you to do it on either side, but ask forgiveness rather than permission, and make sure that you're dealing with your students' health and your financial health and making sure they're in sync. Does that make sense? So stop with Facebook and with Instagram and with LinkedIn and Pinterest. It's all horseshit, right? And in fact, most of what people say on social media, they don't even believe, right? They just polarize everything. Just stay focused, be safe with your students. Stop getting engaged in all of that stuff. It doesn't matter. Start with a fresh legal pad every day and say to yourself, how do I do more marketing right now to get more new students? What do I need to do to get the students back that we let slip away year to date? And what do I need to do to keep my renewal flow going? And by the way, how can I get 400 plus 297 when they enroll? How can I get some paid in full renewals? How can I beat June 2019's cash numbers? How can I beat June 2018's cash numbers? And let's have record months. Is that making sense? But I got to tell you, you know, just stressing out about what the governor says, stressing out about there's a spike in Miami, there's a spike in Dallas, who cares, right? Run your business, Be safe. Keep the student's perspective in mind. Don't make it a political statement because that's horseshit. There's no reason. Look at what AMC Theaters, I mean, this is a big multi-billion-dollar company. They made a public announcement that they're not going to require that it's optional to wear a mask in the theaters. And within 48 hours, I think within 72 hours, they reversed course that all patrons have to wear a mask. Well, don't be that idiot, right? Just have the policy for now, make it safe, recognize there are some people with legitimate medical problems. You can have the little disposable thing for the kid who has asthma. My son has asthma. He had an asthma attack last week. He wears the little disposable mask when he can't breathe adequately, and he's got a more complete, Avengers thing that he loves that he can't breathe as well in, but then he wears it other places. It's fine. He loves it. It's not a big deal. So just don't make it a political issue. Don't take the right-wingers' perspective. Don't take the left-wingers' perspective. Just be an informed business owner and get out of all this emotional crap. Just ignore what everybody freaking out. There's no point in paying attention to any of that stuff. How do I get enough enrollments? How do I get enough renewals? How do I keep my cash up? And how do I keep the retention and get people back in? That's all you have to care about. Then you're good. That making sense? And again, Matt Smith, 2 or 3 that we were hoping to have that conversation with bailed before we got here, as usual. But again, if you're stressed out about that on a minute-by-minute basis, don't be, right? Are your students? Sure. Most of your students are fixated on social media. Most of them are not watching the news 24/7, but what they are watching is completely counterproductive and is teaching them how to think poorly, right? Frankly, most of it isn't accurate. A lot of it isn't accurate for sure. And again,
And I did text a couple people that I thought needed to hear this, that had to leave early, and told them to make sure that they go to this replay of this meeting at 50 minutes into it is when you started. So make sure that they don't miss that because we did cover it.
yeah, I was watching a really good interview with, I think her name's Deborah Birx, the foremost expert on AIDS internationally, and, the person who's been the lead of the White House in dealing with this. And they were asking her about news and news coverage. And she had a really nuanced answer. She said, well, if you read most of the articles that cover Corona in depth, and of course you don't get in depth on TV, but if you read the articles, mostly they get around to really saying what's accurate. It's just that the headline and the photos and the first paragraph rarely are accurate. They're sensational and they lead you to believe something different than what the article says. It's just like that article I was showing everybody about the financial state. The headline in the picture totally misrepresented what the data was. And the rest of her comment was most of the population don't read the article. They see the headline in the picture, right? So what most people are absorbing, even if they think they're informed, is they're getting their news from what was shared on social media. Most of it's BS. Don't care if you're a right winger, a left winger, or whatever you are, most of it's BS, right? So your students are going to be reacting emotionally. Your level of leadership is to be rational, give them facts, not emotional responses, and give them a range of opportunities that makes them emotionally comfortable with training so that you don't slip back. And by the way, there's a huge market right now. I think it's going to be the best summer we've ever had. So go full bore to fill the school, because this is the best time you're ever going to have, and I think as a summer, because people are coming out to a great extent. They're coming out of house arrest, and they're ready to rock and roll. Anything before we finish up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys for taking the time with us.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Zach, today, not tomorrow. Quick, not slow.
What?
Okay. Don't overanalyze. Okay.
Gotcha.
On that note, we'll call it a day, guys.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very welcome.